And within the Microsoft ADC, this is the Africa Development Center. We are the engineering hub of Microsoft. So within Microsoft, we have two organizations. We have the sales side that looks into selling our devices, selling our solutions, and all the sales and marketing functionalities within Microsoft. And then on the ADC side, we are the engineering side. So we are the teams that create the different solutions that you use day to day. So when you think of Azure, Office 365, all the different tools that you use, the engineering side is what, that is exactly what we do. So we're very excited to be here with you today. I'm going to start recording the session. So I'm just letting you know that I will be recording the session. Okay, so we're recording. And for this session, for the next 2 days, we'll be going through Microsoft Azure DevOps, and GitHub. And these are tools, if you are a developer, they're very important in terms of how you collaborate with your project leads, with the different members within your teams, how you showcase your work, how you showcase your code. These are the tools that will really help you to do that. So it's going to be a very detailed explanation. We'll go deep into the different tools, so you'll get to see with the trainers how we go deep into the tools, exactly what you need to do, and how to fully utilize the functionalities and capabilities of Azure. Before we get into the training, I would want to hear, to give an opportunity to some of the members that we have in the call. So I'm going to open it up to Dr. Omamo to give us just a few words to you students in terms of your expectations, and to give you a few words of encouragement as we embark on the next few days. So Dr. Omamo, I'm going to call you forward to speak to the students. Dr. Omamo, are you still on the call? Let me just see if you have...
Hi, Irene. This is Joyce. Let me see if I can try and get a hold of him on the side. But I think maybe as I do so, Elisha can then say a few words then to the students on behalf of University of Nairobi.
Okay, thanks, Joyce. Elisha, the floor is yours. If you're able to hear us, you can come off mute.
Thank you, Irene, and also the other team members from Equity Bank. I am grateful for this chance. I just want to tell the students, both from is it Master or Most and the UN, that this is a great opportunity that we've had to collaborate between the academia, that's the universities, and the industry, represented by both Microsoft and Equity. And it is a rare opportunity. It is not a common thing to find such close collaboration. So we are grateful for both Microsoft and Equity. And I want to encourage the students that they be diligent to attend the trainings because diligence is part of providing solutions. You will not be able to come up with a solution if you don't pay keen attention to your work. So I request them to pay keen attention to the trainings that they'll be going through, and also to the problems that they'll be given at the end of the day, because we expect to have, at the end of the session, we expect to have students who have skills that are able to be applied to solve actual problems out there. That's why we collaborated with the two partners to form this hackathon. I also want to encourage, especially the students from the University of Nairobi. We did our best to select from different departments. We are not only computer science students, we are from multiple departments ranging from Faculty of Arts, Faculty of Medicine, all that. The main reason behind that is to create a multidisciplinary team, a team that can be able to collaborate. The way a student who is pursuing a medicine degree looks at problems is definitely different from the one pursuing mathematics or computer science. But if we bring all this together, then we are able to come up with a fundamental solution. So that's what I really want them to have in mind, that as they'll be forming groups, let the groups be multidisciplinary, so that at the end of the day, we come up with viable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elisha, for that. I'm now going to see if we have Dr. Omamo, if he's able to speak to the students. Joyce, have you been able to reach out?
Yeah, I've reached out to him. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get a hold of him. I think he's been pulled into an urgent engagement. So I'll request that we just continue with the program, and should we reach him later, he can address either as we're closing or even tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to continue with the rest of the program. So as we shared today, we're going to go through Azure. And Azure is the cloud computing service by Microsoft that allows you to host, share, create different solutions on your cloud platform. So today we're going to have a look at what exactly is Azure, the different capabilities that we have within Azure, and how you can utilize your Azure subscriptions. So each of the teams or the individuals will be receiving Azure subscriptions, and this will allow you to host and create your content as you hack away on the different problem statements that will be provided to you. So you will all get a certain amount of credit that will be sufficient enough for you to host and create your content. So as part of the training, you'll be shown, how you can cost save in terms of ensuring that you're not letting your solutions or your virtual machines run if you're not using them. So just some of the tips and tricks to ensure that you're not overutilizing your credits, but you're within your limits and able to still create a solution, host it, and showcase it. So I'm going to hand it over to Julia, who is going to be our trainer for today. Julia was one of our Microsoft Student Learn Ambassadors. And as Microsoft, we have a program for students called the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program, where we have students from all over the world join us as part of our team to work with us on different programs, on different trainings. They get training from us. They get certification vouchers as they go through their technical journey. So Julia was one of our student ambassadors, and today she's going to take us through the technical training within Azure. And if you have any questions, I urge you to put them on the chat. That way we're able to track exactly each and every question that's coming in. We all have access to the chat. So in case you don't have access to the chat, let me know. But it looks like I've opened up the chat to everyone. So you'll be able to type in your questions. We'll also have a short Q&A at the end of the session. That way you can be able to raise your questions and we can help you out. So I'm going to hand it over to Julia to take us through Microsoft Azure. Julia?
Hello. Hi, Irene.
Hello. Hi, Julia. Yes, I can hear you clearly.
All right, perfect. So hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. And Irene, maybe before I proceed, I could ask if you'll still be doing the presentation on how to redeem the codes.
Yes, so I'll do it after your session so that, it's clear on the redemption process after they've seen what Azure looks like.
All right, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So kindly allow me to share my screen.
Okay.
And please let me know once you're able to see it.
Yes, I can see you're sharing your Teams. Yes, and now we can see your presentation.
Okay, perfect. So hi again, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Julia Mwiruri, and I'm a past Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I say past or former simply because I recently graduated. And once you graduate from university, you are no longer eligible to be part of the student ambassador community. So I was a gold student ambassador, and we've worked several times with ADC to help put such content and share such content with students. So just a brief intro about myself. I am certified in the following areas in Microsoft. So that is Azure Fundamentals, Power Platform Fundamentals, and Microsoft Security, Compliance, and Identity Fundamentals. So in case you have any questions about any of these areas, in as much as this is a call on Azure, feel free to ask them. So this is how you can connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Julia Muiruri, and on Twitter, you can use my handle, which is @JulesAJules. So today, as Irene has mentioned, we'll be focusing so much on Azure because for the next, I believe, 2 or so weeks, you'll be embarking on projects. And in one way or another, you might need some cloud services. So before we continue, I think this is the best time for me to ask this. So how many of us on the chat, you could just respond on the chat. How many of us currently have Azure subscriptions? You can say no or yes on the chat, just for me to try and see if we have anyone who has had a subscription before. So just in case you've had an opportunity to have an Azure subscription up and running, just type yes. Then if you've not had an opportunity, say no. Okay, I already see the responses coming in. No. All right, so we are all pretty new to Microsoft Azure. And all right, I think I've had enough. So we are all new to Azure, which is okay. So I think the best thing for us to do is I can show you a way that you can activate your Azure for Students benefit account. So remember, this is a product, this is Microsoft product, but as a student, you can most definitely use this platform without paying. So the only thing that you will need is your school email address. So guys, I really hope that we can have a hands-on session. So if you have your computer with you, we can definitely work together. I will not move at a very high speed so that we can all work at the same pace. So okay, see we have like 2 that have already had their subscriptions before. So if you're yet to have your Azure subscription for students benefit activated, just get a hold of your school email address and just allow me to navigate to a different tab. So there's a way you can actually activate a free account using your student email address. You won't have to pay for anything. You will just use your school email address. Once you verify you're a student, you'll actually start with free $100 worth of Azure credits. So you can get into Azure, play around with different resources, and trust me, it's a lot of fun. So in case you're sorry, is someone saying anything? Right.
It's okay, Julia. I'll keep muting the participants. That's okay. You can go on.
Cool. So there's this link I'm just posting on the chat right now. You can navigate to this link. This is where you can activate your students' free account on Azure. So you will just, it's simple. And the reason why I am starting with this even before my presentation is because it takes a few minutes to get approved. So if you can do it right now at the beginning of the presentation, once we get to the demo part, you'll actually be able to move through. So just if it's possible, just you can follow the prompts. Just start free. You'll be asked to put in your school email address, and then you'll continue following the prompts. They're pretty clear. So you'll sign up, and once that is set, once we get to the demo part, hopefully we will all be able to move together. So in case you're having any challenges, again, on the chat, Irene will help monitor, and yeah, we can just go through any challenges you're facing. So that is it about it. Let me go back to my presentation. So just feel free to keep doing that as we continue. So, all right. Now, what is Azure? So in case we have, in our midst, we have someone who's totally new to Azure. Azure is basically Microsoft cloud platform, which comprises of more than 200 products and cloud services that you as a developer can use to bring your tech solutions to life. So basically, in simple terms, a term that every one of us will understand is that Azure is basically Microsoft cloud. So in case you want to host anything online, For these particular projects, most of you, or rather all of you, will be using Microsoft Azure. So during this training session, we'll just have a deep dive into the different services that you have. As you can see, we have a lot of services, and trust me, these are just but a few. As you can see, we have over 200. So I've just highlighted the commonly used services on Azure. So you can see we have the SQL databases. In case you're working on a system that requires a database, you can always create a database on Azure. In case you want, you also have different forms of files. Maybe you're not really working with tables, with table records. Maybe you're working with files, images. You can always, use a different form of database. We have web services, the web app, which I believe is what majority of us are going to use. We also have virtual machines. So for a virtual machine is that in case you want to do something that really your local computer does not allow, maybe there's a process you want to carry out, and your computer doesn't really have the specifications to run such a process, you can always create a virtual machine. So this is basically, you can have a machine with you can specify what you want, the size, what memory you'd want, whatever operating system you'd want. And you can now create a virtual machine that you can always connect to through your local computer and have access to it. So the bulky tasks that your computer can't allow you to do, you can always do them on a virtual machine. So that's also one of the services on Azure. We also have IoT Hub. In case in our midst we have guys interested in hardware, IoT, AI, there's a lot that you can have there. We have the cognitive services where you can integrate your projects with, these new technologies, with artificial intelligence, cognitive services. And so these are just like a few and the commonly used services on Azure. So I'm not going to spend so much time on them on this slide because we are actually going to dig deeper into them on the Azure platform itself. So for this call, I was asked to prepare a presentation and a demo on how you can host a website or a web app on Azure. So there are two ways you can go about that. You can definitely deploy. So in case you're wondering, if you have an app, how can you get it online for your users to use? How can you get it online for perhaps the judges to judge your project at the end of this hackathon? You can always do either of these processes, and you'll have your application up and running in a matter of minutes. Yeah, so it is interesting, and it's my hope that we are all going to do this. So for the few that said they already have an Azure subscription, kindly the prerequisites for this training would be Visual Studio Code. So if you have that, you can go ahead and power it up. We'll be using GitHub, and we'll also be using the Azure platform. So in case you have your subscription, in case you're setting it up, we'll be using those three for these demos. So the first way that you can host your application on Microsoft Azure is through the portal itself, through the Azure portal itself. And that's the first way we are going to go about it. Then the other way, there's a very easy way to go about it from Visual Studio Code, because we have some extensions that have been released by Microsoft that will allow you to connect to Azure without leaving your editor. So my favorite editor is Visual Studio Code. So sorry, it's the one we're going to use, but there's always a good integration of GitHub and Azure, even using Visual Studio itself. So if you can follow through, no problem. But for this particular training, we're going to use Visual Studio Code. All right, so as I mentioned, the first demo we're going to do is to use the portal itself to actually have an app. So the scenario is that we have an app. So what we're going to do is to navigate to the Azure websites portal. We're going to create a web app service, and then we are going to configure GitHub so that you don't have to keep going back to Azure to redeploy your application in case you make any changes. So we are going to do a GitHub action. I believe some of us are familiar with GitHub Actions. So we're also going to configure that still on Azure to configure a way we can set up a workflow. So anytime you push your code to the master branch, you can always now it will itself deploy your code. So in case GitHub is completely new to you, kindly do let me know in the chat as well. In case you have never interacted with GitHub, please just on the chat let us know. But in case you've had a few experiences with GitHub, I guess you're good to go. All right, so I think we can get started. And yeah, when we get to the demo using Azure, a commonly asked question is if you're a student, if you have to pay to actually use these resources. But as I mentioned to you, you don't have to pay. There are ways around it. So the first one is I was talking about, you need to use your school email address. The second one, Irene is going to take us through, and you are, yeah, and so she's going to take us through how you can activate using an Azure Pass. So I think we can get right into the demo. So I'll just navigate to the Azure portal. Yeah. So ensure you sign in using your university's email address. So in case you're from a school that has your school email addresses, please remember, once you create an account from the link I've shared, you'll come to this URL, portal.azure.com. You will launch the Azure portal and it will prompt you to sign in. So just sign in using your school email address. And then once you're in, you'll be able to see the different services that are in there. So as I was mentioning earlier, we have a lot of services that are available. As you can see, we even have the different categories. We have compute, networking, in case your line is networking, your specialization is networking, storage, mobile web, containers, databases, AI, and machine learning. There is actually a lot that you can do on Microsoft Azure. So during your free time, actually poke around in there, get to play around with the different resources you will find. But remember, don't use a subscription that you've been given specifically for a hackathon, to avoid using services that will use up the credits that you've been given. So during your free time, please poke around in there. And so we are going to start by navigating to the app service. So the scenario I was telling you about is that we have a web app. So let me just show you. So I had created a small app for this demo. So I guess I can run this app. So let me just open in debug so that you can see what app we have. Okay, let me zoom in case you're not able to see. All right, so we have a small application that now I have it locally on my machine. And so the scenario is that this is the application we work on for this hackathon. And at the end of the hackathon, we need to have it deployed and hosted online, in that either the judge can access it or the actual users of the app can use it. So right now it's running locally on my computer. So I just want you guys to see the interface of the application. Okay, so I see a few of you are having challenges using your Meru University email addresses. Okay, maybe just try incognito as Irina suggested and let us know if that works.
Also, Julia, are they able to use Outlook or their Gmail account?
No. For this subscription, you have to use a school email address because it's only provided to active students, and so they need a way to verify that you're still a student. So it will only allow a school email address.
Okay, that's fine. So what we'll do is, at least for the Azure credits, those ones you can issue to Gmail, so that's okay. But this one, since it's a demo, we'll find, I think they can also, when you sign up for the very first time, you also get 100 USD of Azure. So let me send the other link that's not Azure for students.
But if you're unable to use your student email address completely, don't you worry. I think you're covered for this particular hackathon. You guys will be given the credits to use using Azure Pass. So that you can always use that.
Yeah, and the good thing is Azure Pass is for, it doesn't matter if you're on Gmail or Outlook, it will work. Okay. All right, you can go on, Julia.
Okay. So I'm just waiting for this to power up. All right, so this is the small application. So this is the small application that we will actually deploy to the cloud on Microsoft Azure. By the end of this demo, hopefully that will work. So the first way, I told you there are 2 ways to go about it. The first way is on the Azure portal itself. So I will just go back to the portal. And the service, the resource that we use for this is called an Azure service, an Azure app service. So let me actually switch subscriptions. Let me use a different subscription for this demo to avoid having any challenges. All right. So once you navigate to the home, you'll be able to see the resource. It's up there just because it's frequently used. So just click on app service. Then you create a new app service on the top left. So just click app service. You create, and then you'll get a pop-up that will now ask you to put in some key details for your application. So for now, you need to select the subscription that you will be using. So if you have your student subscription up and running, you'll definitely select Azure for Students. If probably you're using any different source, select the subscription that you want to use for this, for this demo and for this project. So for the resource group, I already have a resource group. But I think I can create another resource group. So what a resource group is, sorry, I should have defined this first. So you might have several projects and you have several resources on Microsoft Azure. So you wouldn't want to have individual resources mixing up. Like you wouldn't want to have all the resources pertaining, let's say 5 projects all together. You might want to have some logical grouping. So I can define a resource group as a logical grouping where you can have a group on your Azure account where you store related resources. So in this case, I am going to create a new resource, a resource group. I will call it Azure Demo. So the name is available. I'll say okay, and I'm going to create this app inside this resource group. So a resource group is basically just an what do you call it? A logic container that you can put related resources together, and it makes it even easier to share. Remember, you'll be working in groups, so you might want to share these resources on Azure. And to avoid sharing individual resources, you can always share a resource group, and everyone you share with will get access to all the related files and resources. So now you need to give your web app a name. And just to point out, the website URL that you'll be getting will be a .azurewebsites.net URL. So that is the default, that is the site, that is what you will be getting after creating a web app. So for the name that we will give it, it must be unique because it will appear on the URL at the final product. So we can call it Azure Demo Test 2, 3. So you have to ensure the name is available. So you'll get a green check mark if it's available. Then in our case, we want to work with code. So that is why I said we'll also need GitHub. So we're going to select code because we are publishing code, not a Docker container and not a static web app. We'll be working with code. Then you need to select the runtime stack. So depending on the kind of project you're working on, this project that we're going to do is Node.js version 14. So just select it. Then you need to select the operating system that you would want. So I think we can go with a Linux operating system this time. Then for a region, there is something I think I should probably mention at this point. This region is basically the point at which you will be hosting your resources. So remember, Azure Cloud has several regions. So we can see the list from this drop-down. So we have very many regions where you can host your applications. But one thing to have in mind is that you need to select a region that is closest to you, simply because it's going to be cheaper and it's going to be faster for you to load your resources. So for us here in Africa, I'm assuming we're all in Africa, we're going to use West Europe. The reason why I'm not going to use South Africa is because I realize that South Africa actually is pretty expensive when it comes to some specific resources, but I think we can just use West Europe. And then from there, now you need to select your Linux plan. So it already has one selected for you. Then, okay, so for the size, it has selected a premium. Now, okay, so based on the operating system you select, that will determine if you can get a premium or a free version. Remember, you can get a free version of a web app. So in this case, for a Linux operating system, you have to work with a premium account. But if you want to change that, just click change size. So now this is highly dependent on the type of project you will be working on. So if you're working on a very bulky project that requires a very huge database, you might want to increase the size. But in case it's just a small application, you really don't need to have a lot. You don't have to secure a lot. So the first basic B1 core. So I'm looking for a B1. Because it's quite, as you can see, the prices here are a bit high depending on what you're going to choose. So for dev or test, we're going to select a dev or test. We're not using this in production. So there is one that is free. The 1 GB memory is free. And let me see, because if I can get that, it's actually enough for my demo and for the application that I have. So yeah, it appears I can use that. So you can go to the next step, this next configuration, which is the monitoring or the deployment. Now, for those who are familiar with GitHub Actions, you can automatically set a workflow so that you don't have to keep going back to Azure to keep redeploying your application. You can always set up a GitHub action. Whenever you push your code to the master branch, it will automatically pick the changes and redeploy them for you. So we're going to enable that here. All right, so it appears for this service plan, it is not available. So I will just go back because I will need that. I think I will work with a Windows operating system, West Europe region, and I'm going to change the size. So dev test, I can use this. So as you can see, a lot of things keep changing depending on the, the specifications you've given your app. So I think that's good to go. We can hit next. And now you can see I'm able to enable the GitHub Actions page. So at this point, we will set up a workflow on GitHub so that once you push any code to your master branch, it will automatically deploy that app for you. So we're going to authorize GitHub. You'll just be asked to do that, and you authorize Azure App Service. So you'll be asked to actually log in first. All right, so it has already picked my account. So this is my account. I'll select the organization. So now you need to point towards where your project is. So for now, you can use a demo project if you're following along. So I have one repo called the Azure demo. So the site I was telling you about, I was showing you, is actually on GitHub. I have it on GitHub. So here's the code base. So I have just connected it and instructed Azure to now get to GitHub, my account, and use this branch. So the master branch is where, in case any changes are pushed to master, it's definitely going to redeploy my application. And I don't have to do that manually. So I can go to the next configuration, monitoring. So there's a cool service here. It's called the Insights, the Insight application Insight. So in case you want to monitor the frequency of how your site is being visited, you can now enable application Insights here. And in case, you can get the number of visits, the number of clicks, what people are doing on your website. In case you're interested in getting that summary, you can always enable application Insights. In case you're not interested, just leave it as it is. All right, so I think we can review and create. I don't think we'll make any other changes. So it's going to validate all the details that we've given it. It will probably take a few seconds. So maybe by a show of hands on the chat, could we get anyone who is following through, someone who's also doing this on their end? Just let us know in the chat in case you're able to work on this as we are doing it on this training session. That will be the best way for you to understand and probably have an experience working with it. So just let us know on the chat. Okay, so you just get to review your details, and then once you're done, just click create, and it's going to start creating your web app for you. All right, so this is going to take some time. So guys, it's as simple as that actually. I think I should mention that in case it looks a bit intense. You've already created a web app. You've already pointed it to where the code is. You can point it. You've already pointed it where your code is. So it's just a matter of you working on your code and pushing your complete features on the code itself, on the master branch. So once you do that, Azure takes care of the rest. It will redeploy your application and you'll be able to have it running live. So this will take a few minutes. I see we only have one person who is following through. Mary, I think that I means you're following through. So you can also be sharing your progress in case you manage to do something, just let us know. In case you hit any blockers, please also do let us know. All right, so that is the first way. That is the first way you actually do it. There is a second way, which is simpler. So I think we can move to the other way since this will take some time. I think I can show you. So what we've actually done is created a workflow. So this is what I had before. Let me just refresh and see. So I had tested this out earlier. And so this is what we've done on Azure. We have created a GitHub workflow. And guys, it's as convenient and efficient as you've just seen. We didn't have to come back to Azure. We didn't have to come back to GitHub to set this flow. We did everything just by clicking buttons on Azure. So it's very easy to use. So if you can open the YAML file that has been generated, this is basically the actions, the GitHub actions that are being followed. So as you can see, once it's going to set up your application, it's going to build it, it's going to start the application, and it's going to deploy it. The last step is basically to deploy it to the Azure web app. So it's that simple, guys. So that is the first way that you can go around creating a web app and deploying your application. So we'll give it some time. Okay, so let's see, it's complete. So we can go to the resource on Azure. So
Julia,
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It's just that there are a couple of questions before you move to the next part. It's just two questions. The first one, I don't know if you addressed the one for, can we use Jenkins for DevOps instead of GitHub Actions?
So for DevOps, that will be, you will need to set up that from DevOps itself. So I think you'll be having a session on DevOps tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So when setting up the CI/CD on DevOps, there's a way you'll be able now to specify your code base, where your code base is. So that is something you'll be able to do, but from DevOps. Since you saw from the flow we were using here on Azure, we didn't have any other options. There was only an option to activate, to use GitHub Actions. So that was on Azure. But definitely tomorrow during the session, the training session, when you're going over DevOps, please do bring that question up but I think it will be covered on how you can now connect it and you will have your app running. So you can definitely do that, but from DevOps.
Okay, perfect. And then the last one is in the deployment part of the organization side, which organization should one use?
So Wycliffe, are you talking about on GitHub? Maybe you could specify that for me, because the only organization we've been asked to select is on GitHub. So if that is what you mean, okay, let me check your responses. All right, so Wycliffe, if that is what you mean, you will just point it to exactly where your code is. So if you have created an organization, maybe for your project, the team you'll be working with, you will just point it to where exactly your code is. So there is no specific organization, just where you've saved your code on GitHub, point it to where it is, to where it resides. So maybe Wycliffe, you can confirm if you meant organization on GitHub. Okay, Irene, do you have any question? Any other question?
Yes, one last one. Is the rebuilding and redeployment available for all development technologies?
Yes. So for this demo, we're using a React app. We're using the Node runtime stack, Node.js runtime stack. So as you've seen, the moment you set up your GitHub action, you don't have to come back to deploying your application again. So it depends with whatever technology you are talking about, Hope. You will just specify the runtime stack. As you saw, we had several. I don't know if I can. Let me see if we can just try creating another one. So create a new web app. So we have several technologies. Once you select the one that you're using, so we have the .NET, Java, Node, PHP. So definitely the configuration steps might be slightly different, but that is based on the choice you make. So you'll be able to follow through. And once everything is set, yeah, you will have completed the entire thing. So there will just be a slight difference in terms of configuration depending on what you're using. But at the end of the day, once you complete creating a web app, you set up your GitHub workflow, you will be good to go. So I hope I answered your question. Hope. But yeah, so I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, let's see if Hope will respond. Mary says, I'm stuck at enter web app name. App does not exist.
Oh yeah, so you need to use a unique name because remember that will be the name of your website. So just keep trying. For me, I'm using Azure Demo Test 3, but because it's also a demo, you can try using Azure Demo Test 5, 6, but just keep trying. You will definitely get a name that is available. The reason why you're getting that is because you're using a name that is already existing. So just keep trying, just try changing it, try making it a little bit unique, and it will definitely accept. I hope I answered your question, Mary. All right, so I think that's it with the questions, Irene. Is that right?
Yes, that was the last
perfect.
one. Yes.
Perfect. So we have already created the web app, and I have just clicked on the web app. This is the name we gave it, Azure Demo Test 3. And as you can see, we have like an overview, a summary. So we have the resource group in which we selected it to be. So remember, when you're working with your team, it's easier to share resource groups instead of individual resources. So we see the status is running. Now, this is another tip. This is just a tip. Once you receive your Azure credits, in case you're working with bulky resources on Azure, I'll specifically talk about a virtual machine. If you will at any point need a virtual machine, whenever you're not using it, please turn it off. You can do that by just, you'll have this stop option. Just stop it whenever you're not using. Simply because anytime the virtual machine is running, it is consuming your credits. So I've ever had a scenario where I was working on a very serious project and I accidentally left it overnight, only to wake up in the morning to get a notification that I had no credits remaining. So it can be as serious as that. And you wouldn't want to, have such cases. So in case you're not using an Azure resource, just stop it. You can always start it again whenever you need it. That will help you save on the cost that you use on Azure. So you can also see the location of our web app and everything else. So this is the URL that was generated. And at this point, we probably want to browse to the website and see what content is there. So we'll just click browse. And it's going to open a new page with the URL that we gave it. So we said Azure Demo Test 3. So that is the name of the URL, .azurewebsites.net. Now remember, if you want to use a custom domain name, you can always do that, but it also comes at an extra cost. So you can definitely slap another, domain name that you prefer. Just open the app service itself. Then on the left navigation pane, you can scroll down to, I believe there is such a service. Okay, let's just search. Oh, custom domains, yeah. So in case you're interested in getting a custom domain, maybe you're not interested in the Azure websites.net, you can always purchase a domain and attach and add it to your web app. So you can always do that there. So I just wanted to navigate back to where our site has loaded. As you can see, the web app is live. So it has already created your web application. The only thing they're yet to have is the content. So the code that we have on GitHub is yet to be loaded. So they've said that you can take up to 5 minutes. So we could probably leave this and go to the second way of how you can do this. The second way is actually way easier. So no need to worry about it, but we can maybe check after 5 minutes and see how this goes. So in case you want to monitor the progress that it's making, remember, I'm sure now it's stuck at GitHub. So this is where it currently is. So maybe we could check. Yeah, as you can see, there's an activity that is going on. So let's just see. We have this. So this is the workflow that we've just created. If you can open it up and you can view runs. So if I'm a little too fast, guys, please let me know. I don't want to lose anyone, to leave anyone behind, especially those who are following through. So as you can see, there is the first step that is going on. So you'll be able to monitor the progress, and at the end of it all, you'll be able to see how much time it has used. So it's still spending 9 minutes on build. So let's just click and see what's happening. So it has set up a job. So basically, I saw no one said they've not worked with GitHub before. So this is probably not new to you guys. So now you can tell at what step it is. So this will actually take a lot of minutes. The reason why I've mentioned that is that we did not archive any of the files in our app. So for you guys, since you'll be working on this project and it's a competition setup, you would probably want to have a faster deployment time. So to do that, you can just modify your build flow, your workflow. You can modify it to archive some of the files because it's going to take some time, but that is simply because it has a lot of files to keep uploading and downloading. So if you archive them, that will be faster. I will share a link to a step-by-step guide on how you can do that later, but that is in case you're worried about the deployment time, though this won't affect the performance of the application. So I think we can have this continue and we'll come back and check after it's done. So any questions so far? Or any comments?
We do have a question. During the redeployment, does it give a fallback application or just maybe to avoid disrupting services to users?
Fantastic. That's a brilliant question. Thank you for the question. So there is something on Azure called, let me go back. We have deployment slots. So in case you do want to have different instances of your application running, you probably want to have the live app that is on production that your users are using. You can have that on a different deployment slot. Then you can specify a second or even a third deployment slot where you can be deploying, a different version of the application. Then you probably swap. So I'm just trying to locate where that is. So I'm going to click on the app service that we just created. That is, I'm in the wrong, sorry. I had a backup one in case this one fails me. Demos have a bad tendency of failing people. Yeah, so this is our app. And as you can see, once you go to the deployment section, so I've just opened the app itself. On the left navigation pane, there's a deployment section with a quick start, deployment slots, and deployment center. So if you click on deployment slots, so based on the app service plan you're using, you might actually not have access to this. As you can see, I need to upgrade to a standard or a premium plan to be able to access the deployment slots. So in case during your, I'm using a free version, but since you guys already have the credits, you can use, let's say, a B1 or just a standard plan, and you'll definitely have access to these deployment slots. So I'm not going to upgrade simply because I really need to use these credits later on next week for something. So guys, if you want to use, so it's definitely possible. Back to the question you asked, yes, you can have that running, but you'll now use deployment slots. So once you upgrade or once you use a different plan, you'll be able to now follow the prompts, and you can have like several instances of your app to avoid disrupting the users. I do hope I answered your question, Hope. Yeah, but that's a very good question. Thank you. Any other? Okay, so for the Meru guys, I think there might be something that can be done, but that might require administration's input. So I don't know if we have anyone from the admin in Meru University. So if no one at all has been able to access Azure using their school email accounts, it's probably because your school has not yet registered. So that's probably something that the administration needs to check out. So in case there is no one at all who has been able to use their school email accounts, you could maybe ask, I don't know if there's a member of the admin, but maybe Irene, you could follow up. But yeah, maybe it's on an administration level, they need to be accepted. So for instance, in my university back in Kimathi, there's a time when that wasn't possible, but one of the student ambassadors had to reach out to the VC who was able to have that running for us. So in case you try using a Kimathi school address, it's going to allow you to proceed. But in case that's the challenge, maybe your administration might need to chip in. So there's another way. Yes, there's definitely another way you can go around it. You can create a free developer account. But the only difference is that for a developer account, you'll actually need to have a credit card, because you will need to have your credit card details. You will use the services for free, but after you complete using them, I think it's for a period of 1 year, or I'm not sure about the period, but once that time elapses, you will now be asked to move to maybe a pay-as-you-go subscription, but you can cancel that subscription if you're not interested in that. So yeah, we can always explore different ways. It's just that for students, the student email address is the safest, and you actually get a lot of benefits. So Irene, I don't know if we can proceed.
Yes, we can proceed. I think that was the last question.
Perfect, yeah. Perfect. So we can now head over to the second way of how we can do this. Let's check. All right, so it's still at 66%. So let's probably give it a few more minutes. We can now navigate back to our Visual Studio Code. So your editor, you're probably one of the developers that is not interested in shifting from one application to the other. So you can definitely do everything on your editor. So you will probably need to install a few extensions. So the specific extensions that are key to you using an Azure web app are an Azure account extension. So if you don't have that installed, you can definitely go install it. So just open VS Code, navigate to the extensions pane, and select Azure account. You can install that. We also have the Azure App Service extension. Also install it because it's the one that we will use. You can also, in case your application has a database, so you can also use an Azure databases extension. You can also install it. And in case you also want to monitor your resources while you're still on your editor, you can always install Azure Resources extension. So those are the four. So those are the 4 key extensions that you would want to have installed if you intend on hosting any application from your editor. So I already have them installed. I don't have to do that again. So we can, once you install the Azure account the Azure account extension, you will get this icon appearing on this left side. So you can just click on it. You can click on the Azure. So this will appear once you install the extensions. If you've not yet installed, you won't see this. But once you install, as soon as you install, you'll definitely be able to see this icon. And once you click it, you'll be able to see the different services within Azure that you now have access to. So I just want to confirm I'm in the correct branch. Yeah, so this is the master branch. So remember, we set up the workflow with the master branch specifically. So if you are working on a different branch and you forget to merge to the master, remember your changes won't reflect on the live app. So we definitely want to access Azure App Service. So that is what we are looking for. And once you hover on the Azure App Service section, you will see a plus sign. So this is now way 2. Okay, we are done with the first way of how you can do it. This is the second way. So you just click this plus sign and it will prompt you to create a new web app. So I'll just click it. And then, all right. So I have seen a question in the chat. So let me just paste the extensions. Oops, sorry. Oh, I forgot to send that. So those are just the extensions that you will need. So yeah, hope those are the 4 extensions you will need. Right. So once you install them, you'll be able to do everything we're going to do in this demo. So I clicked on create a new web app. So we're going to give it a globally unique name. So you remember on Azure, there's a step where we had to give the unique name, where Mary was stuck. Sorry, Mary, for using you as an example, but I think it will help people remember. So where you need to give it a unique name is actually here at this step. So we only have 3 steps when you're using this way. So you have to give it a global unique name. So we'll keep using the name that we are using, test 7. I hope no one has used 7. Yeah. So once it's available, you'll be able to click enter. And the next step is to select a runtime stack. So as you can see, it's just like what we were doing on Azure, but it's now simplified. You're able to access those, but through your editor. Now my stack is 14, version 14. And then now this is where you get to select the account that you want to use. So remember, we have a few restrictions with the free plan. So that is in case you have no credits remaining. But if you do have some credits and it's a project, you definitely want to work on a project that will win this hackathon. So I advocate for a basic plan. So I'll also select that. So at the bottom right side of the page, you will see the steps that are actually happening. So we've told it to create an app service, and that is exactly what it's doing. So it's calling an API, an Azure API, and creating your app service on the specified subscription. So, a step I missed. For those who are doing this for the first time, you will be asked to sign in to Azure on Visual Studio Code. So I didn't have to do that because I'm already signed in. But once you install those extensions, you will be required to sign in. So it's just giving GitHub, it's just giving Visual Studio Code authorization over your Azure account. So you'll definitely be required to do so. If you're already signed in, like myself, I am signed in. And if I want to sign out, it's simple. I can just use this keyboard shortcut. I can say Control-Shift-P. So Control-Shift-P. And I'll be able to get access to a few of the commands. And you see, you can now sign out. So I won't sign out because I have some processes going on. And as you can see, my web app has already been created in a matter of seconds. So guys, this is probably going to be your favorite way of going about it. So this is the web app that has just been created. It's currently on my subscription. And the next step is to deploy. So we've not deployed our code yet. We've just created an empty Azure app. So what we can do, next to the create new web app icon that we had up there, we can now deploy to our web app. The next icon is to deploy. So I can click deploy web app. Then I will definitely select the folder that I want to run, the folder that needs to be built. So the project is the Azure demo project. I need to select a web app. So in case you didn't create a web app, you can create a new one from here. But because I had created one, I will just select the one that I want to use. So I want to use demo test 7. And something to note here, in case you attempt to deploy code to a web app that you had already deployed some other piece of code, it's going to overwrite it, as you can see on my screen right now. So in case, let's say in case I had some code already deployed on this Azure Web App, I can definitely deploy again, but it will be a permanent, a permanent action. You can't redo it. So it's going to overwrite. But in this case, I don't have anything, so I'm just going to deploy. And yeah, in case you want Visual Studio Code to keep remembering the project that you used, and the web app that you used, you can allow, but for this, you can just skip that step for now. And so this is going to initiate the deployment. So we didn't have to set anything. We did not have to set anything. But the difference is that using this approach, you will probably need to be deploying your application every time you need to have a new version up. So this will take a few minutes. So for those who are still following up, maybe you can share your project, your progress on the chat. Irene, are we still okay on the chat kindly? I hope you can all still hear me.
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for the confirmation. So now what is happening, we can just check the output window to see what is happening. And maybe I can just try and explain as well. So we've prompted Azure to create a web app. That was the first step. And now what is happening is that it's calling out to the Azure API. And what it's going to do is that it's going to zip this code. It's going to zip your code. So it will use the archive. It's going to use a zip code. It's going to compress your code and send it over to Azure. So that is what is actually happening. So right now, once you give it the go ahead to deploy, it just compresses your code. It sends it over to Azure. It will push it to Azure. Then now Azure takes over from there. So Azure is going to extract your code. It's going to extract the code from that file that it receives from this command. And then in the root folder, it's going to run npm install. So in case you have some extra dependencies in your application, Azure is going to run npm install in the root folder. So it's going to have all the dependencies that you need, and then it's going to npm start. So that is just like what is happening here. If you can read through, you'll find the different steps. Yeah, so you can see it's running install, npm install. So you can be able to read through and see the specific steps that that are happening in this trigger. So, but what is happening is that basically it's just calling an API from Azure, sending the zipped file with your code. Then Azure extracts it, installs the dependencies, and runs it in the specified app service. So that is just what is happening. And once it completes, so as you can see, it was just doing a lot of things before. So now it's creating the zip package. So this is also going to take some time. So that is why I was asking, in case we have anyone who is following through, you can also feel free to unmute, share your progress, share even a success. Maybe you've been able to do something successfully. Please do share that with us as well. In case you're not able to follow through, guys, I'm sure this recording will be made available and you can always reference it later. So maybe we can go back and check on the first trial we had. Okay, I have multiple pages open. All right. So it completed the build. And now it's at the deploy stage. Yeah, so, and guys, remember, this does not affect your performance, the app's performance. So it's probably taking time now because you see it has to keep uploading and downloading artifacts, but now this also depends on the size of your project. If you have a very big project, I highly recommend patience because you'll definitely need it. But once it's up, your project will be running as expected. Remember, for those who might be working on, a full stack project, you can also now weigh the different options you have. You might want to host the front end and back end together. You might want to host them on separate app services. So remember, you now need to think about the trade-offs as a team, as a group. You need to know, are we willing to sacrifice the performance? Because obviously, if you host the front end and back end together, it's definitely going to be a little slower, maybe 6 seconds slower. But in case it's something, it's a trade-off you're not much worried about, you can definitely go ahead and do that. So a lot of decisions you'll need to make together as a team. And so this is just like the how. If you need to do something, this training is about the how, but on the decisions, please do make as a team. Now I see both processes are still continuing. Oh. Yeah, we need to give that some time. Okay, any questions? I think I can pause there for any questions, comments, concerns. All right. If you probably thought it will be challenging and you found that it's not really challenging, you can also let us know. We enjoy feedback. If it's vice versa, please do let us know as well. So let me see if I had some points to make. Yep. Oh yes, so most definitely, I think this goes without saying, because you will be working, I think for 2 weeks, you'll be working on this project. And remember, you still have to have your sites up for judging at the end of the 2 weeks. So you need to keep checking your accounts, the credits that you have remaining, so that you're able to plan for them. To not have a situation where you have an amazing product, you have hosted an amazing site, but during the judging period is not accessible. Keep checking your credits, but if you keep turning on and off your resources, you actually save on a lot. Then yeah, there is something I can also mention here. We are advised to use resource logs. So we do acknowledge man is to error. So you might find maybe one teammate got into Azure and accidentally deleted a resource or a resource group. So maybe if you'll appoint one leader to manage all the resources, you can apply a resource log on your, the resource group that you'll create. And then from that way, from that, you won't have any accidental deletions of your resources. So that is definitely a point that you can always take home. So any questions? I think we just have to wait, to keep waiting. So this is at 57%. Wow. I don't know, Hope. I think Hope was following closely. Hope, have you managed to follow successfully? Maybe you can let us know the point where you are right now. So let's see if the process on Visual Studio Code has made any changes. Yeah, so it created the zip package. It detected that I'm using version 14.18 of Node.js. Oh, Hope, I'm sorry. I hope you'll be able to fix it. I think I don't know, Irene, maybe if you have a presentation, we could go through it and then come back to seeing the results of this.
Okay.
It's just in case we're using up so much time waiting.
All right. I think we've addressed the questions on the chat. Maybe we can open up for a quick Q&A, just to see if anyone is lost. Just a check-in. Are we all okay? Are we lost? Maybe you can come off mute and ask or type on the chat. We would really love to hear voices, at least to know we're not alone. So if anyone can talk to us.
Even just saying hi.
Hi, Irene. Hello, Irene. How are you?
Hello, fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm Jennifer from University of Nairobi. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh yeah, I have a concern. I didn't get an email for today's meeting, although I attended on Friday. So I wasn't sure what happened there.
Maybe Irene will be able to address that issue.
Okay, and then hello.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
This is Joyce Kimathi from the
Okay.
team. We will communicate to you on the status of your application by the end of yeah. So how did you get the link? Did someone share it with you?
Yes, someone from my school shared it with me.
Okay. All right, then we'll be sure to let you know then on the status of your application by the end of the day. Yeah?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Did you have another question? I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
I guess no other question. Let me see if we have any raised hands. Anyone else with a question, comments? Maybe if you're stuck or you need some assistance, just to make sure we're all okay.
Hello.
Hello. This is Brian.
Yeah, sure. This is Brian from University of Nairobi.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have some few questions regarding the PS Studio Code. Upon looking into your Azure portal, does the Azure portal have its PS Studio Code, or we have to install it from the external source? Thank you.
Okay, so Brian, if I got it correctly, you are asking if you can download Visual Studio Code from Azure itself, or you have to get it externally. Was that your question?
Yeah, sure. For example, the one you're using, did you have to connect with the external one, or is just in the Azure portal upon logged in?
Okay, so that's a good question. Thank you so much. So no, you don't actually get Visual Studio Code from Azure. So Visual Studio Code is a product on its own. It's a standalone product as well as Azure. So you definitely, the usual way of installing Visual Studio Code on your computer, then now through the extensions that you install, now you're able to access, the different resources and services that you're interested in. So back to your question, no, you do not get Visual Studio Code from the Azure portal, because they're two different products. So if you already have Visual Studio Code installed in your computer, you can actually use it. It's just a matter of getting to the extensions and now installing the right extensions. So if you install the Azure account extension, you will be able to access your Azure account now from Visual Studio. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. So it's in your Visual Studio Code, then you have to install those extensions of Azure extensions.
Yes, that is exactly what happens.
All right, thank you.
Cool. So I see the second way of doing it has already completed. So in case you are doing a comparison on which way you prefer, I won't tell you which one is best, but I guess you can just make the comparisons. You can see that the second way has already completed. It says that it has deployed successfully, and now you have your Azure site running. So we could just navigate to it and see if indeed we got our page. So right. So in case you're interested in learning more specifically in the steps that were in there, the steps that are followed by the API, calling the API and everything, you can definitely just read through these steps. I think everything is there. So let's see if that was successful or we missed out on something. It's taking some time to load. I don't know if it's my connectivity or... So what is expected, the behavior that we expect is that the application that we had locally through Visual Studio Code and the necessary extensions, we were able to upload and deploy it on Azure Web App. So that is the behavior that we expect. So in case we encounter any errors, at least we know what we expected, and we can always work through the errors until we get, the final site up. It's taking a longer time. Okay, so this is a demo I had done before. So yeah, this one was successful. It was demo test 4. So I also used Visual Studio Code for this one, and that went well. So let's see. Let's try refreshing. We welcome any questions as we keep waiting. So let's just refresh and see if we can get it to load faster.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my name is Joe from Meru University.
All right. Hi, Joe.
I'm fine. So I'm on a Ubuntu machine. And usually, as I try to use Azure from Microsoft, I usually get some errors. It's actually very difficult to host something, to deploy something using Azure. Is there any way that I can get across that?
So you get errors trying to access Azure online?
Yeah, trying to deploy some of my application online. And say I'm trying to upload a microservice app. I'm using Minikube. So when I'm trying to access Azure from the CLI, inanipatianga two errors. Must I be on Windows machine, or is there a way to get past the errors?
Okay, that's a good question, and unfortunately, I'm not quite sure if I can give a detailed response, simply because I have never used Linux, I've never used Ubuntu, but maybe something I could propose is probably trying a different way of deploying your applications. So if using the CLI is bringing some errors, you could probably just explore and see if there is a different way you can go about it and see if it will succeed. But I'm really sorry, I have never used Ubuntu before, so I might not be in the best position to answer that question. In case we have some Ubuntu Forever people in the audience, they could probably share something. But yeah, I'm really sorry, but maybe you can just see if there's a way that you can try doing it, the whole process online, and see if it's going to work.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we were waiting for this site to load. So as you can see, guys, we've successfully uploaded, we've successfully deployed the site that we had on an Azure Web App using the Visual Studio Code extensions. So this is the second way that has completed. In case it's, in case you're comfortable with it, you can definitely do that. So yeah, that is demo 2. So demo 1 is also completing. Yeah, I can see it has completed. So maybe we can navigate and see if that has reflected. So we can just refresh and browse to the site. All right. So at least now it is reading our website, so it's now able to access our content. And there's this common error. That we get, that this permission error that we usually get. So when you get to this point, you don't have to worry about the connection of your Azure Web App. You have successfully connected. So the issue is now on the authorization on Azure. So this might take some time because let me see if we can be able to solve that now. I'm looking at time, so Irene, I don't know, because this will most definitely take some time. Let's try and see.
We can extend, it's okay, because at least we need everyone to be comfortable before we move to Azure DevOps. So if everyone is okay on the call, we could take a couple of more minutes after 1 o'clock just to make sure we're all okay with Azure and we're good to go once we move to DevOps tomorrow.
Okay, so Irene, unfortunately, I might not be able to stay longer after 1.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think this is something we can definitely get a fix to. I've encountered this error severally, so there's definitely something we can work around it. But at this point, don't worry about the connection of your code and the web app. It was successful. It's just a matter of tweaking the permissions. So for some people, so this is actually an open issue on GitHub, Stack Overflow. I think some people have tried to give some solutions, but you'd find that different solutions work for different people. Like for someone, if you can just restart this web app, you'll find that it actually loads the code. For someone else, you might have to, confirm. You might have to confirm if all your files were uploaded. So I think we can just check and see the specific issue that we have here. So just a second. Yes, so let's try and troubleshoot this. So I'm accessing Kudu. So Kudu is just an environment where you can get to troubleshoot a site, see where the specific challenge is coming from. So the fixes that have been given online, the first one is, if you can simply restart your web app. Sometimes that works miraculously, but I've not been that lucky. So for me, I have to dig deeper and get to know what the issue is. So in case you get to this point, I'm sure that by the time you're getting to this point in your project, you'll have found a fix for this. At the moment, I think it's the much you can do is just be able to pinpoint where the issue is, where the specific issue is. So I'm just trying to confirm if it has our root files, if it has uploaded all our root files. So sometimes during the deployment, some files get omitted. So you might find like your index.js or .html files were not uploaded. So you can use this way to just confirm that all your files, all your resources were successfully deployed. So I can see that I have all the files correctly. And we have here the index.js files. So I think, Irene, we can proceed because this is a matter that we are yet to find a solve that is common for everyone. But okay. I'm happy to just keep checking, and I will definitely share an update. But in case anyone is able to find a way around it, please do share with us all. Yeah, we enjoy working and learning together. But otherwise, this is the final step. Once you're able to troubleshoot this, your site should be up and running. But guys, don't worry, I will keep looking at it, probably get the specific place where the error is originating from, and I will definitely share that with you. Hope that's okay, Irene.
Yes, that's okay. Let me just see. Okay, do we have any questions? I see there's a hand. So let me check. Let's see the chat. Let's address what we have on the chat first before we go into the raised hands. Okay. I don't know if you've addressed this one, Julia. Can the solutions be open source?
You mean your solutions on GitHub?
I think that's what he means. On GitHub, yes. So yeah.
Yes, most definitely. But I think for this particular time, when you're working through the hackathon, it should be a private repo, just depending on the terms that you've been given for this hackathon. So before you complete the hackathon, it should probably be a private project that your team is working on. Then maybe after, after you've completed the hackathon, you can now go ahead and open source, make it publicly available. But remember, the same workflow remains, that any push made to the master branch will always be deployed. So remember, when you want to open source this code after the hackathon, just ensure that as the maintainer of the repository, you have a lock on your master so that not everyone is able to merge with master, because that will definitely lead to some challenges during your, regarding your live site. So you can definitely open source your projects, but it's recommended you do that after the hackathon. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, so let us know if the question was answered. Thanks. The next one, is there a way we can get the first stages of the meeting? So Brian, yes, I'll share the recording. By evening, you should be able to get the recording. So the Equity team will share the recording with you. Okay, another one is just finished signing into Azure, but I was following up on the demo. Okay, Amina, that's good. So once we share the recording, at least you'll be able to catch up. And you can go through it as slowly as you want to at least see the step-by-step that we've done as we were creating the different applications. So that's okay. Does Azure database support SQLite?
All right. So yes, in case your database is specifically SQL, you can, but it's normal. You might not find it being referred to as SQLite, but I do believe it does give you access to SQLite. So as I said, you can just poke around in there. You could try. Okay, let me try. Let me see if we can just check and confirm that. So SQL databases. So once you start creating, I'm sure now you will get more details about the specific resource you want to cover. But yes, I do believe that that's possible. So, but in case you also want to learn more about it, there's a link here, and I believe it points you to the documentation. So in case that's something you also want to do some further reading on, I don't know who asked that question. Yes, you can definitely do that, but I still believe it's possible. But remember, it all depends with the app service or the resource service that you select. So you might be able to get a full SQL database, and actually at no cost, as long as it meets the minimum requirements of your project. I think you're good to go. So for now, I wouldn't say it's something to worry about, because you will be given the credits. But in case you don't have the credits, maybe that's something you can start thinking around. Thank you for the question.
Okay. What else can we create on Azure other than the web apps? Let's say you're a mobile app developer. What's the procedure?
Okay, so as I had shown earlier, once you go back to the landing page, the home page on Azure, you can check all services just for you to see what is available for you as a mobile developer. So once you select mobile, so it has several categories. So it has got several categories, and you're able to see, so if you're into web development, the kind of resources you can have. If you're into mobile development now, you can probably see if you'd want to have a web app that's also responsive on a larger interfaces. You might want to deploy a web app instead. And then, so you can also get access to the notification hubs and Power Platform. So I believe that these are the resources available for someone specifically into mobile development. So for now, we see there are just these three. But remember, if you you're working on a web app, on a mobile app. In case you'd also want to capture the responsiveness, you can always work on a web app instead of just a mobile app. So yeah, in case you're also from different areas, it's not necessarily mobile. In case you want to do some IoT stuff, just definitely get in here and check the resources that are available. But we'll also share our documentation. The documentations are on Microsoft Learn, so you can always check specifically what you're interested in using.
Yeah, perfect. Actually, that's what I wanted to mention, that we can share some self-paced learning that you can go through. So we'll actually create a challenge on Microsoft Learn, and we'll be able to see how each of you are doing as you go through the different content. So after tomorrow, when you've gone through DevOps and GitHub, we'll create a Microsoft Learn challenge for you to at least ramp up on your technical training. Okay, a couple of more questions. Let me go to what I've just seen. What if one has finished his or her credits? Can one request more credits for free? So I'll take this one. So Abraham, for this particular program, we've put a cap on the amount of credits that you can use, and we've done this by calculating, how much credits you would need to host your solution for the next 2 weeks as you're hacking. So as Julia has mentioned, it's very important that, number one, any of your virtual machines, please switch them off if you're not using them, so that they're not eating your credits, because once you deplete your credits, unfortunately, we cannot provide more credits for you. So you'd have to make do with what you have. Secondly, make sure that your project is ready before you host it. So continue to work on it so that you're not just utilizing your credits and, leaving things running, eating up your credits, and then once it's the day to showcase your demo to the judges, you're not able to do that because your credits are depleted. So let's make sure that we actually fully utilize in the most responsible way, so that you're able to still have an opportunity to showcase your creations or your solutions to the judges. So there's no additional Azure credits that will be added. I don't know if I missed, let me see if I missed a question. I remember seeing, okay, yes, the recordings will be shared. How will you access? You will receive an email from the equity team. They will send an email with the recording. That way you'll be able to access that. Julia is posting a couple of links, so please have a look at what she's sharing. And then that way, you'll be able to at least ramp up on everything that you needed to know from today's session. I'm just going to scroll one last time to see if I've missed anything. Okay, you have a question, Julia. Can we use Firebase on Azure? Julia, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Michael, so yes, you can actually, when you go the second route, when you're trying to deploy using Visual Studio Code, you're able to get some extra extensions. So for instance, actually, allow me to reshare my screen just to address this one question. So let me just share Visual Studio Code. So Michael, in case you are, particularly using a specific database that is not on Azure, you can definitely use it. So if you can come to the extensions, for instance, there's an extension that can allow you to connect to, let's say, MongoDB, and you can now deploy your app service and also deploy your database. So once you install the MongoDB extension, in case that is where your code is, you can now connect it. So in this case, I'll just show you on Azure. Since I already have the databases extension installed, you can now be able to attach different database accounts that are not particularly from Azure. So you can definitely have, you can use different hosting platforms. It doesn't necessarily have to be one from Azure. So you can definitely find a way to, play around with whatever technologies you're interested in using on Visual Studio Code. But then at the end of the day, you can now be able to deploy your databases online.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'm sure that answers your question. Okay, let me just see if we have any raised hands. Anyone else with a question? We have a few more. Okay, Geoffrey? Oh, okay, you've taken down your hand. Okay.
Irene, yeah, I had also
Yes.
seen that Peter, Ngigi, and Abraham previously had their hands up and dropped them. Are they okay now? Before we
Please let us know. Geoffrey, I see you've returned your hand. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So I was inquiring. I've joined the session late because I was in class, but I was inquiring about the ideas. Like, are we confined to one thing, or maybe people can do multi-platforms, like maybe Android and others can do. Should it be universal or something?
So yes, it's open. You don't have to just use, create on Windows. You can create Android. It's perfectly okay. It's up to you on how you want to address the problem statement.
Okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Abraham, you had your hand up, and I think one other person had their hand up recently. Or your question was answered? Okay, so I am assuming silence means we're good. maybe I'm just gonna give 2 more minutes just to see if we have any other questions. But as I do that, I'm just going to invite Joyce from the equity team in case there's any announcements on the equity side that they would like to share. Before that, Janet, I see your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yes, it's more of a request. How can we be able to communicate with you as we go through the documentation in case we have problems?
Okay. Joyce, do we have an email address that they're sending all their queries to, and then that way we are able to get that information?
Yes. So if it is beyond the training sessions, you have 2 ways where you can get assistance. One, we will be pairing you up with mentors who would also may have information and be able to assist you. But should you need specific information or unable to create your accounts or access your credits or any issue like that, then you can send an email to info.hackathon@equitybank.co.ke. That's the same email address we have shared previous communication on your participation for this hackathon. So you can still use that same address, and we will get that. We will pass along your query to the Microsoft team or to the relevant team to assist you. But remember, we will also still assign mentors who would be easier to reach. You will have sessions with them. They'll be available to help you. So that can also be a point where you can get some guidance if you're having any problems with as you're working on your solution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. We go back to the chat, just making sure I've not missed anything. Okay, so I don't see any questions on the chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Joyce in case the equity team have any announcements for you.
At this point, I just want to thank the students for taking time to participate. We have 55. I was hoping to have a higher number, but I think because of schedules, there could be students who are in class, and I think that there's benefit in us then sharing a link for them to catch up, because I think there's valuable information that can allow them or equip them as they go into the next coding phase that will start from next week. So I just want to thank you all for your time, but I was not too sure. Were you going to take them through how to utilize their credits or their allocation? Those are component that you are shelving for the end. Do we have time for that, or do we start off with that tomorrow?
Yes, let's do it tomorrow because I want us to at least cover DevOps so that when we explain why we are redeeming the way that we're redeeming, it will make sense. So we'll cover it tomorrow on the DevOps training.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I think then we are smack on and we are within the window. The training was to end at 1 o'clock. So from my end, I think that there's not much more to announce at this point. But should we have any information that would want to pass on, we'll be sure to send you an email. Please keep on the lookout. Keep checking for any communications that we'll send through to you via email. And I encourage you to keep attending these trainings because that gives you a better chance of understanding and making good progress during this hackathon. And I wish you all the best. So wishing you a good afternoon and God bless.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. I wish you a good afternoon and see you tomorrow. I'm stopping the recording now. I will download it, make sure I send it over to you in the next few hours. Thank you. All the best. Bye.